how to have hard conversations with your kids today on the Church Revitalization Podcast.
Hello, and welcome to the Church Revitalization Podcast, brought to you by the Malphurs Group team, where each week we tackle important, actionable topics to help churches thrive. And now, here's your hosts, Scott Ball and AJ Matthew.
Welcome to the Church Revitalization Podcast. My name is Scott Ball. I'm joined by my friend and guest, Mark Shoemaker. Not by AJ Matthew today. You're getting me and a friend, a guest co-host. How about that? Mark Shoemaker. Mark is a friend of mine. I've known Mark for, Mark, how long have we known each other now?
I'm thinking, 4 years? 3 years? 4 years? 4 years? Yeah, somewhere in there.
Yeah. I got to know Mark through just consulting work that I did with a church where he used to be on staff, and we've continued this friendship, and I just so appreciate Mark and his leadership and his wisdom. Mark, I don't know if you know this, but I have my degree in youth ministry.
I don't think I knew that.
Yeah.
See, that's why we get along so well, man.
Except here you are. We're close to the same age. I won't tell our ages, but we're close to the same age. I'm just a little bit older than you, and you're still leading in that area of ministry. And I gave up a long time ago. I didn't intend to, but that just happened.
Just happened, man. Yeah, I'm still student men in the circles of that, and I love that. It's still so much of my passion, and I love that I get to be part of that still.
Yeah, it's so good. So Mark's joining us today because Mark has written a book with his dad, Tim, on having hard conversations, how to have difficult conversations. And so whether you're listening to the podcast today and you have kids who are teenagers, or certainly you have people in your church who are parents of teenagers, this is an incredible resource. I've had a chance to read the book, and I think when we were preparing for the podcast, Mark, off air, you said we wanted to create something like a field guide, more like a field guide, less like a book you've got to read sort of cover to cover in one sitting. I think the first part of the book, you want to read it sort of start to finish. But then this part 2 of the book is more of like a resource library. Like you just kind of skip to the part that you need. So I don't know if you want to share the vision of the book a little bit and kind of break down. I probably shouldn't explain the book for you.
No, that's good, man. I love that you were able to pick up on that just from reading it. Because the beginning part, we kind of go through, my dad and I write about some best practices, good practices for having conversations. All of us have different background and what we would say makes for good communication or helpful communication, different strengths and weaknesses and blind spots within that. So this is trying to combine a lot of our experience, me as a youth pastor and working with parents and teens for years and years, and my dad having raised teenagers and working with parents and all that for years and years, to try to give a little bit of help for getting yourself set for these conversations. And then the rest of it is 30 different, what we're saying, tricky conversations, because I think all of them to a certain extent have a part of it that make it tough to have or tough to apply or tough to connect with them on that or finding the right wording for it. But all of them essential. So I think my goal would be for my 3 kids, at some point in those years, we're going to have every single one of these conversations, and many of these conversations multiple times as things change and evolve, and the needs change over the course of those years.
Yeah, I was about to say your experience in this comes from your years of youth ministry, but you're approaching these conversations also. I won't give too many personal details about your family, but you're approaching these years with your kids. And I was telling Mark off air, I've got my son is a newly minted teenager himself, just turned 13. And I've already, some of these conversations, these 30 conversations in the book, I've already had, and I wish that I had had this book because I'm like, oh, that's a better way of saying that than what I chose to say. So,
Dude, just this
um,
morning, man, I was screen time came up as we're getting ready for school. So like the hustle and bustle of everyone getting ready in the morning and screens comes up. And honestly, it was just like shooting from the hip in the moment. I'm making coffee, making breakfast, doing these things. And I said something and we kind of laughed about it. My wife and I, we looked at each other. I was like, yeah, there's got to be a better way of kind of talking about this. And then I joked with her. I was like, "Yeah, I wrote a book on this." And then we both
yeah.
laughed. It was like, "Yeah." So it's tough, man. Like it's one of the things my dad and I talked about as we're writing these. How many times I was just staring at a screen and saying, what is actually my goal with this conversation? What are we
Hmm.
actually trying to do?" And I'd start writing. I'm like, a lot of that is like behavior stuff, and like, how do I get to the heart of this, or
Hmm.
what's actually motivating them with this? So I have the benefit of hours and editors to help me really craft through these conversations. And it made us believe in this project that much more because so many of our moments of conversations is what I experienced this morning. It's in the kitchen, it's getting ready. I'm thinking about my day and all these other things I have to do. You're stressed about this, that. Honestly, a little bit of maybe annoyance that could be there at whatever part of your day. I'm not thinking through like strategy of how I
Yeah.
have this conversation. So that's what we're really trying. Field guide. You can jump into this and be like, oh, that is applicable. I think I need to have this conversation. You can spend 10 or 15 minutes with this in that section. And I think it'll help at least start to get you a little bit more ready for having it.
Yeah. I think one of the things that you talk about in the first section of the book is kind of picking your times. And I think, with certain conversations, you get to do that, or you can at least defer, so, you know, I guess a screen time conversation, for example, when you're getting ready for school, you probably don't get to go through the prep process and think through, okay, how do I want to have this conversation?
Right.
And I think you and your dad talk about this in the beginning of the book. Sometimes you just have to give directives, and go, hey, I need you to put the screen down, and then intentionally choose not to have the rest of the conversation right now, which I know for me personally, I want to then go into the whole conversation on why we're
Totally.
not doing screen times. But sometimes I think and again, you all said this in the book, maybe just give the directive and then follow it up. Then once you've had time to prepare, go to the book, kind of get some advice, pray on it, then pick the time and go, hey, yesterday morning, you were on your screen and I just would love to have a conversation about why this is really in the mornings is not really helpful. And now maybe your kid isn't in the emotional reactionary moment of being told off in the
Totally.
moment, and you're not in the emotional reactionary moment of being frustrated that they're on, and maybe especially if you can pick the right setting and the right method, which are things that you guys talk about in the book, like what would be the best setting for this kind of conversation and what are some of the key talking points. Um, then it can be more productive than if you try to cram the whole conversation in a 6:45 a.m., trying
Totally.
to get
Yeah.
through on time.
I think so often we think that the conversation or the issue is addressed because we did the corrective thing and we said, "Hey, put the screen down." And sometimes that's true because we just had to handle it in that moment. But oftentimes, if we're just saying it in that moment, um, we haven't yet gotten to the motivation or the heart and what's there, and trying to explain the vision behind where we're trying to lead them to and why we're doing what we're doing. And so either we check it off our list because we told them not to, um, or sometimes what happens is we get tired of saying the directive and we get tired of correcting it.
Mhm.
And it sort of falls off and we never have the conversation. Or sometimes, and this is what I saw a lot in student ministry, the parents will have a very annoyed and frustrated urgent conversation, because in their mind, they're like, dude, I got 3 minutes to have this conversation because I got to finish doing this and I'm getting ready. I got to jump in the shower and I'm going to go. And it's like, because you've thought you had to do it there in that moment. So there's actually damage done. Of course, we can apologize as parents, and we should, and we all will so many times because we won't nail every conversation. But the number of times that I would talk to students who wouldn't understand the heart behind it, and all they got was the correction and sternness in an annoyed manner, and there wasn't the conversation to help them really see it, or the good questions to ask them to make them think about it and be like, yeah, wait, why do I want to do that? So really trying to protect against that, because those are our kids' experiences and how their opinions and thoughts are being formed about their own practices. And that's the goal of parenting, is we're raising adults. And that's one thing that my pastor here says at the church I'm at. And that's so true. That's like our goal. We want to get them there where we're not going to be sitting necessarily with them at 6:45 this morning talking about screens. I want them to be ready for it when they're 25 and they're getting ready in the morning.
Right. Yeah, I talk about this with my kids all the time. Probably they hate it, but that's a phrase I use with my kids all the time. Is I'm like, I'm telling you this because because one day you're going to be a grown up, and I want you to be thinking of these things the way that a grown up should be thinking about these things. But we've talked about screens, but you guys cover a wide range of it's 30 different talks, but they're kind of
Yeah.
divided into different subsections. So things about family, friends and dating, their walk with the Lord, emotions, their personal habits, their views, and conforming to culture. These are hard conversations to have, especially depending on where you live. I live in an area that's more culturally conservative, so it's easier to have those conversations because their friends are more likely to come from homes that
Yeah.
share a similar enough worldview,
Yeah.
whereas you live in a different kind of a context, I know,
Yeah. I'm right
where
outside
their
Chicago.
friends,
Yeah.
yeah, right outside Chicago, and their friends probably come from homes that have a very different worldview. Not their church
Totally.
friends, maybe, but their school friends.
They're seeing it all, fourth grade, fifth grade, all through there.
Their
Yeah, they see
teachers.
it. Teacher, school, all that stuff. Even commercials, shows, and we're pretty strict on all that stuff of what they watch, but you start to realize, like, yeah, culture is talking about a lot of these things, and there are subtle shifts. And so I think some of the tendency, at least in my experience as I talk to other parents, is there's an intimidation of those kinds of conversations, especially about culture. Some of the intimidation, I think all of it is understandable, but I think some of it is because the way that we talk about these cultural things, the way culture talks about it, shifts in the words that they use and all that stuff. So some of it is like, man, you kind of feel like you don't even know the language to use now about it. And so that's some of what's tough. Some of it is we just need to be bulked up on really why we believe what we believe. And so every section in the book has why this is important. And that's our attempt at, in a condensed manner, helping each parent be able to have a couple paragraphs on the biblical worldview, the theology behind, the heart behind a Jesus follower wanting to live this certain way. And yeah, with the cultural things, you might have some categories in your mind, but really trying to help flesh some of that stuff out to give you a little bit more confidence as you go into the conversation about it.
So a lot of our listeners are going to be like pastors and um, youth leaders and some elders, churches. I'm curious what, apart from, I'm sure you'd love for them to do a bulk order of the book,
Heck
but
yeah, jump on it, guys. Let's do it.
yeah, let's do it. Um, y- you know, one of the things you guys talk about is that sometimes in these conversations, the best person to have the conversation with the teen isn't the parent, or at least supplement. So I guess my question would be, as a youth pastor, still, someone in youth ministry, what advice would you give to church leaders on how to be a partner with parents in navigating these conversations, these kinds of conversations, especially things maybe around porn or,
Yeah,
because that's probably one that a lot of parents don't want to have with their kids. They'd be like, "Oh man, I'd love for the youth pastor to have this
right.
conversation," or questions around, how do I know that Christianity is true? Those are things that they can talk about their experience, but kids are smart, man, and they're like, they might have deeper questions than a parent feels qualified to even answer.
Yeah, and access to so many resources, online and so many yeah, different outlets and all that stuff. Yeah, it's part of the intimidation of it. I think for church leaders there's a few things. One, I love what you're saying. It's the idea of partnering with parents, I hope, is a massive focus that every youth pastor has in seeing that the discipleship first and foremost is happening in the home. Now we know not every home has parents ready to do that or who want to do that or whatever, but it's always our hope to partner. And so um, I think having good resources as a youth pastor is really, really important for a couple reasons. Generally speaking, a lot of youth pastors are in their young-ish 20s, maybe peaking up into late 20s. And when I was in those years of youth pastor, I didn't have very many parents asking me questions. They didn't trust me yet with that. And I
Mhm.
get that because I was so young. They weren't necessarily asking me how they should disciple. They might be wanting me to have conversations, but so I think for you younger youth pastors, having a great resource, um, resources
Mhm.
that you can give out and say, that's your way of partnering with parents and saying,
Mm.
hey, and it's not just this. It's, I remember we started up like a book club and it was an older parent who was getting like towards the end of their student who was in high school and they had parented other kids through and they started a book club and just trying to help other parents who were like fresh showing up into it. So I'm big on resources. And I think that this could be a resource that a young youth pastor has that can hand off to other parents. But I
Yeah,
think too,
jokes aside, have a few copies, one for your reference, and then have a couple that you don't know when the parent's gonna pop in and go, "I'm struggling with
yeah.
fill in the blank," and you can be like, "Hey, great, here is this," you
So
know?
just had this last week. Last week I was here for Student Men and uh, my job, I'm at a church that has 4 different campuses and I lead over the guys who are doing the student ministry at each spot. So one of the guys caught me in the hallway. He's like, dude, I just had this conversation with this parent and their kid is asking questions about gender and they're not sure what to say. I didn't know what to say. Do you have anything like resources that help parents talk to their kids about gender? I thought he was joking because I've talked about the book a little bit. So I was like, oh, very funny, man. Like,
Yeah.
he's like, no, really? Like, they're still here? Like, do you? I was like, dude, yeah, that exact situation, Scott, was some of the fuel in me wanting to spend as much time on this as we spent time because I genuinely have seen that situation that I just described there play out so many times where parents
Mhm.
they have the right desire. They want to have productive, good conversations. It's just a matter of not feeling prepared or not knowing how to or not wanting to mess something up. Or some of them already feel like they have a strained relationship with their kid. And they're like, man, I don't need to push on this. This is just going to push them away. And so trying to take all that into account. So I think that's for student pastors. Hopefully, there's a resource. I will say this some of these things that are in here have found their way into messages too. So I think if you're a youth pastor teaching on emotions, anxiety, depression, things like that, I totally think you could pick this up and look at it and try to think through. I think you could use some of that for the message, or even your small group leaders. Some of them are stepping in the gaps of homes that they don't have students that
Yeah,
don't have parents who are Christians and who are not doing it. And so to put this on the radar of some of your small group leaders, some of whom are not even parents, right? And so that much more to be a
right.
good resource person. And if you're a senior pastor, how many times do we know senior pastors all over the country that don't have a youth pastor? They're at a church, they're serving at a church that the youth guy is a volunteer, or senior pastor, you're the youth guy. Um,
Right. Yeah.
that's
Yeah,
my
you're
uncle.
also doing
My
that.
uncle is
Yeah.
at a church and he does student ministry and he's preaching all these things. The amount of time you can devote to that. And so we're hoping this is a resource to help. Um, because I saw it play out. I still see it play out. And now I'm seeing it play out in my own home. The
Mhm.
parents who lean into these conversations, even if they're a 6 out of 10 or a 4 out of 10 conversation to start, to still lean into it. You're better off starting it and refining it and getting better at it. It's a skill to build up.
Mhm. Yeah, I think that's true. I am in by no means patting myself on the back. I think, if anything, I have a tendency to wanna turn into, like, Pastor Scott or,
Yeah.
Consultant Scott with my kids, which
Yeah.
isn't good. Like, I'm
I'm
always
guilty.
wanting
Yeah.
yeah, I'm like, I wanna have learning moments with dad. But I do think that there are things that I've stumbled into that you talk about in the book that I have learned. Like, I had, one day I had watched, like, a ton of football on a Saturday, and then I had also watched a Cowboys game on a Sunday, and so I'd been, like, sitting on the couch way too much, and the weather here in Tennessee was beautiful, and so I'm not a big, like, "Let's go on a walk" kinda guy, but it was just so nice outside. I just said, "Does anybody wanna go on a walk?" And, like, my wife was busy. My daughter didn't want to, but my
Yeah.
son was like, "Yeah, okay." So we drove to the park and went through the woods and went on it wasn't a long walk, maybe 45 minutes, something like that through
Yeah.
the
That's
woods.
great.
And we had the best we talked about all kinds of stuff. I mean, it wasn't one of those planned conversations like I had attacked. He asked questions about theology, asked questions about I mean, and I just don't have those kinds of conversations with him that often, and I felt really convicted, like, "Oh, I don't know that I'm giving the space."
Mm,
You know,
that's so good, man. Yeah.
er just choosing to go on a walk creates an opportunity to have a conversation. He's gonna start asking about things, and it was so good, and I just felt really guilty. I thought, "I need to be doing this more," but that's one of the methods that you talk about. It's like, go for a drive.
Yeah.
Go for it because 'cause you're not having that weird eye contact that you might have at a meal.
Yeah. The shoulder to shoulder takes away some of the, yeah, uncomfortableness for them of it. I still remember when my dad had one of the many talks with me about sex. We were driving, and I remember just my eyes out the window the whole time. And I was like, so it was almost like I was in the conversation, but didn't have to really be, you're less on the spot. So yeah, we talk about that. I just had um, last year, my son was, and he's not a teenager. So that's another thing we talk about with this book. Really, a lot of this applies before, during, and after teenage years. But um, there's a lot of things that were tough for him in school, and Sarah and I didn't fully get it. We we weren't getting everything from him. Like there was snippets of conversations at a dinner table where the other kids were also talking and stuff. And so we had this drive up to Milwaukee, and it was an hour and a half. I just settled. I didn't even turn on music. I just wanted to see where he took it. And it was the most meaningful conversation we had um,
Yeah,
in months
yeah,
around that. And so, yeah, some of it is just creating the space, and we offer some suggestions in there, and but a lot of it is pretty. um, similar themes of it. It's like walking or driving or out for
I know
coffee or out for a
you're
meal.
like, it's not rocket science, I guess,
Yeah.
but we just don't do it, and I'm so, I don't know, not ashamed or angry, but just feeling like, "Man, am I missing opportunities?" Something I used to do with my dad when I was younger was, it wasn't every weekend, it was maybe once a month or so. My dad, I don't know how intentional this was or wasn't, or if it was just my dad really liking diner breakfast food, and my sister and my mom not liking diner breakfast food. But, on a Saturday morning, once every once in a while, once a month or so, my dad would go, "Hey, you wanna go have breakfast?" And we would go and we would have breakfast from breakfast until lunchtime. Like, we would be
I
there from,
love
like,
that.
9:30 till, like, noon,
Yes.
and I would I'm a verbal processor anyway, as listeners to this podcast know. But, I mean, I would just talk. We talked about everything, and I think to this day, the first person I wanna call when I have a question, or, my dad is still the first person I wanna call,
Yeah. Same
and
here.
have a conversation with, and I think that's likely a byproduct of those Saturday morning breakfasts, and I got all this kinda guilt because 'cause I'm like, "I don't know that I'm doing that the same way." Of course, I didn't really start doing that with my dad until I was a teenager, so I guess maybe I still got time to to make the most of the next, 6 years or so of my son still being in the house.
Well, there's a few things with that, Scott. I mean, one is uh, as much as you feel that.
I'm glad we're making this about me. This
No,
this,
I was just about to make it about
podcast
all of
already.
us. No,
Okay.
I'm just about to make it about all of us because I think as much as you feel that, we all feel that. To a certain extent, even writing this, um, I'm holed up in my basement and I'm writing this and I'm like, I should probably go do this and go upstairs. And so it actually changed when I wrote a lot of this stuff. It's like, it's either got to be at 5 a.m. before people are awake, or it's going to be at 11 p.m. when everyone's asleep because I'm like trying to apply some of this stuff better. But I think you set a lot. People could speak to this so much better than I could. Um, but it's been my hope that a lot of my time investments and memories investments, and I know you're big on that, and I
Yeah,
love
I
seeing
spent
this stuff.
way too much money on vacations with my family, but I have got no regrets because 'cause I'm like, "Listen, I'm trying to make these memories with my kids."
I
I
think
don't know
some
how
of that
long
though
I'm.
sets a foundation though too of this relationship and this closeness that as they get older and they mature and they're just more ready for deeper conversations that you start to have those and it's just another layer in what you've already been building. So I do think you've already been building and investing towards that. So even I noticed it with Nora, my daughter, in the last 2 years. Dude, we're talking about different things. It is a totally different experience to tuck in my youngest son and what we're talking about,
Yeah.
dragons and pirates and all sorts of things, to my daughter with friendships and dynamics and self-image and all these things. It's like, oh my gosh. So,
Yes.
was she ready for those conversations 5 years ago? No, man. She wanted to dress up in her Elsa dress, and we did that. No, she did that. I didn't do that. Clarification. So, like, we're like, I think it's all part of the process. I think we all have those moments that we can look at and be like, oh, we could have and should have done that better. Am I being intentional enough? I got another time this Saturday lined up with my son. It's going to be a drive and an afternoon hangout, going to a football game, and I'm like already thinking about what should I ask him and what do I want him to talk about. So
Yeah.
we'll see what happens.
Man, that's so good, and that's what I want to. I want to be, for both of my kids, for my son and my daughter, I want to be the person. My son is way more introverted is not the right word because when I see him with his friends, he's not introverted at all. But he's way more private. Like, whatever's going on the inside, he is keeping that there. He's not gonna strike up a conversation with me or my wife, generally speaking, about how are things going between friends or that kind of thing. Um, But my daughter's not that way at all. She'll talk about anything. And it's funny, I think she's picked up on the car being a good place. It's almost always the drive home from dance for her. It's a
Yeah.
20-minute drive, it's not that long. But I always know pretty much every week on the drive home from dance, she's gonna ask me some hard conversation. How come this thing? Or this is
Yeah.
going on. What does this mean? And I think she knows she's got that 20 minutes with me, which is maybe just long enough for her because by the time we're done with the drive, she's ready to be done with the conversation. She's in 5th grade. But yeah, these moments are so important, and I think we aren't prepared enough for them. I'm so glad that you and your dad wrote this book. Which, by the way, I think we've gone this whole time and haven't actually said the name of the book, which is What to Say and How to Say It to Your Teen. A Parent's
Yeah.
Guide to 30 Tricky Conversations. We're obviously going to have the book linked in the podcast and all that, but it's out now. Not when we're recording this, but when this podcast goes live, the book comes out
November
on
11th.
November 11th, and you are listening to this podcast on November 12th. So when
Perfect.
it came out yesterday.
Yeah,
When you're
so
listening,
it's
so
great
out now.
timing. It's
Yeah,
like we kind of strategized for that
it's
a little bit.
almost like we knew that was
It's
going to happen.
like I'm talking to a strategic planner right now and someone who's really good at strategizing things.
Actually, to be honest with you, you reached out to me about this, and it just worked out. And it was kind of a divine thing. We've got really busy schedules, so we've recorded all the way till the week before this. And so I was like, yeah, let's record another one, and let's have it come out the week of the book coming out. So, links below for you to purchase the book, and you should purchase several copies so that you can have a few to give away. Mark and his dad, Tim, who I also know. Do you want to say anything about your dad and kind of, you've talked about your experience just kind of as we wrap
Yeah.
up, but your
He's
dad's written a bunch of books.
Yeah, he does this. Like he's an author and he writes and he does a lot of fiction, boys fiction, and for kind of this age range. And so he does the whole author thing and speaks and goes to conferences and writing labs and helps other writers and stuff. So he was
Yeah,
actually
I mean, he's
talking to
written
me.
for Focus on the Family. He's written for, yeah.
Yeah. So he was talking to me about this project and I had ideas. He's like, "You want to do it with me?" So that's how I got into all this. Author was not really on my radar. And then, so yeah,
Yeah.
I've said I'm like riding his coattails, but a good friend of mine has said, standing on his shoulders, man, that's good. Like it's a teamwork thing. So I appreciate that.
Totally. I get that. This is a Malphurs group podcast, so I'm totally familiar with standing on shoulders of people who have done great work, and
Yeah.
I think it's a good thing to do to kind of continue the work and evolve the work in your own way. So check it out. The book is called What to Say and How to Say It to Your Teen by my friend Mark Shoemaker and his dad, Tim Shoemaker. Man, it's been so great to both talk to you and catch up with you,
Yeah,
talk
I
life,
love
and
this,
talk about this
man.
book.
Yeah. Thanks
Yeah,
for having me on today to talk about it. And so good talking today.
awesome. All right, everybody, grab your copy and the links below. And thanks for listening today on the Church Revitalization Podcast.